The rest of you will want to know more detail about the legal steps to buying a property and also some details about the NHR regime. Again, we're only going to do 15 minutes and you can talk to our speaker after the presentation. So I'm now going to ask Geoffrey Graham from Edge International to come and talk us through some of the details.
Thanks so much, Christina. Hello, good morning, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here, I have to say, 2 years on. And yes, I just want to say thanks to Christina and her team of we've put a lot of hard work in putting this event together, at this particular time. So hopefully I will interest you and your ears will prick up hearing about the various benefits offered by the Non-Habitual Residency Programme, together with how you implement that by acquiring residency rights in Portugal, and also the basics of buying property in Portugal as well. It's a lot of material I'm covering, so I will have to be rather succinct. If you do wish to discuss any of the matters covered in the presentation in more detail, I'll be on stand with my colleague Gonçalo Figueira after this presentation. So first of all, a little bit about Edge, a little bit about myself. I've been living and working in Portugal for 23 years. And it has been certainly an interesting journey, in many ways a lifestyle choice. And I'm senior partner at Edge International Lawyers, which is a law firm with offices in Lisbon, in Porto, and in the Algarve. And we have a representation office here in London, together with an office in Cape Verde. So I'm an English solicitor, I'm a Portuguese lawyer, and I'm an Irish solicitor as well. So I can very much support British clients and British residents clients together with the firm on their prospective move to Portugal. We're a full-service law firm. We're one of the leading firms as far as the non-habitual residency is concerned, the visa program is concerned, but we also specialise in real estate and actually company incorporations. So we tend to find that clients who may initially start as a private client evolve into a corporate client, and vice versa. We have very much tailored solutions for British and British resident clients because really we've been doing it for so long. Portugal as a lifestyle hub. Well, all the boxes are ticked really there, aren't they? Weather, beach, lovely food culture, wine, history, architecture, but to name a few. Obviously there is one of the things that's on analysis. Generally, when people are moving to Portugal, when clients are moving to Portugal, I tend to feel that at least up to 50% of that decision clearly is a lifestyle decision. Sounds an obvious thing to say, but it is worth noting. But why is it trending? Well, you're all here, so you probably know better than me. Well, it's a wide variety of destinations, increasingly diverse. It's a beach destination, a golf destination, wine destination, even a kind of a food culture destination. All of those various reasons to live and move to the country, which has been, I suppose, accentuated by pandemic. Just speaking to a couple of the other exhibitors at the out on the floor, basically it's very apparent that having been 2 years under pandemic conditions, people really do have a will to explore Portugal further. Forbes likes Portugal, the Global Peace Index likes Portugal, VDEM likes Portugal, even the New York Times likes Portugal. There is literally no one else to vaccinate. And Condé Nast loves Portugal. It's elected as the best country in the world for travel. So, non-habitual residency program. Now, let's go to the detail of how one qualifies for the non-habitual residency program and the benefits of the program. It was introduced in 2009. Portugal was a very different place then, and it really principally aimed at attracting individuals and their families to live and invest in Portugal, to become a tax resident. It can, as Matthew said, be maintained for a period of 10 years, and it can result in pensions, dividends, interest, royalties, and professional income originating in a non-Portuguese source, being exempt from tax or subject to a preferential rate of tax in the case of pension at 10%, and high added value activity at 20%. What are the requirements? The requirements are pretty straightforward. Become a tax resident, not having been tax resident in Portugal in the previous 5 years. So just to go a little bit over the details, some of this may seem repetitive, but it is important to emphasize that successful applicants will be exempt from personal income tax on qualifying income if it could be subject to tax in the country of source, even if not effectively taxed, under an existing double taxation agreement. So the Portuguese legislation works with the various scores of double taxation agreements that Portugal has across the world with other countries in order to implement a very tax efficient or even tax zero solution. If there is no DTT in place, it's not fundamental, because it will be exempt if it could be subject to tax in another jurisdiction, and importantly, not considered as Portuguese income. And then, as Matthew has said, there's a special flat rate of tax of 20%, which applies to individuals in exercise of a high value activity. It's a finite list. Generally speaking, we can fit most clients under one of the activities there, and it would apply to salary, but also to self-employment income. So what are the requirements? Tax residency, first of all. In order to satisfy the residency test in Portugal, it's necessary to spend 183 days in the country or have your Portuguese address as your worldwide address, your centre of life in Portugal. So how to satisfy the requirements? By a declaration. It doesn't happen by way of a passage of time. It happens by way of a declaration that the individual makes, or we make on behalf of the client, stating that they are a tax resident. And this is done by way of a proof of address, by way of a rental contract or a deed of purchase. Under the NHR programme, there is no minimum investment requirement. But under the residency permit requirements, which obviously UK citizens are now subject to, there would be necessarily a minimum investment requirement, which I'll come on to. So NHR in the post-pandemic world, I have to say, Portugal adapted very quickly to putting a lot of its services, which were previously over-the-counter services in the tax authorities, online. So as a result, obtaining the famous NIF, the non-resident tax number on behalf of clients, we can achieve this if the client gives us the power of attorney, and we can generally obtain this number within 3 to 4 days. The right to reside. The right to reside is effectively by way of securing the right residency solution for you. Again, something which I'll come on to a little bit later, and then subsequently having a rental contract or a property deed. Tax residency, we can do this on the client's behalf, again using the power of attorney. The NHR application we can also take care of on behalf of the client, and then NHR status granted, 100% success rate, even in the appeals which we've run. So all the reasons to make the application or feel secure in the sense that there's a fairly guaranteed result at the end. When we were doing this at the start of the program, clients would have to wait perhaps for 6 months before the decision came through, so that added an extra layer of uncertainty. So establishing residency after Brexit, well, there's two basically channels here. One for holders of an EU residency certificate, which has been secured prior to the 31st of December 2020. And in these circumstances, this needs to be exchanged for a new residency card, which is issued by the immigration authorities, CEF. These cards have not yet been issued, unfortunately. However, British citizens are secure in knowing that this residency certificate will survive, if you like, until the end of the year. I'm told by a very reliable source that effectively the cards will start to be issued this month or the beginning of next. I haven't seen it happening yet, but I'm sure it will. The important thing is that effectively the immigration authorities, they have the machinery literally to put it into place and print the cards. So the second channel is Golden Visa or D7 Visa, both of which I will cover in, unfortunately, a little bit of scant detail, but again, you can speak to me afterwards or Gonzalo. So for the Golden Visa, the most obvious investment is the property investment. There are other investment channels available, namely through the transfer of capital funds in the shape and form of €1 million, or indeed investment in a property fund of 350,000. Important thing to remember is that these rules are changing from the beginning of next year, but I will come on to that. So focusing on the property, there's no limitation on the ownership or use of the properties, and given the fact that the minimum stays for the Golden Visa are 14 days in any 2-year period, the Golden Visa does not imply tax residency. In fact, just the opposite. The majority of our Golden Visa clients are not, vast majority, are not tax residents. But the beauty is at the end of the process of making the investment, having made the application to the immigration authorities, that the client will obtain a residency card which allows free movement in Schengen. So there's a freedom to select one or multiple properties. The property type doesn't matter. It can be touristic, it can be residential, it can be commercial. As I say, minimum investment 500,000, although for refurbishment property that can be 350,000, reduced by another 20% in both cases where it's in a specific low density area. And then an investment in off-plan properties also possible. So the timeline there you can see in terms of making the investment and then subsequently collecting the residency card. The timelines, I have to confess, are probably a little bit ambitious there. They're probably a little bit more pre-pandemic, and therefore you would see these probably stretching out by a number of months. So in terms of the changes to the Golden Visa, what will happen is that properties, non-touristic properties, residential effectively will be, which are located in certain parts of the Algarve, in Lisbon and in Porto, will not be qualifying properties for the purpose of the Golden Visa program. However, that doesn't mean that the Golden Visa has ended for property investments. Au contraire, it just means that there are certain areas which are nominally called interior areas in Portugal, whereby that continued investment can be made, and certainly even parts of the Algarve still qualify. The other changes are to the fund investment, which will go up to 500,000, and the capital investment, which will go up to 1.5 million. The other option is the D7 visa. Now, the D7 visa is very much geared for you if you are moving to Portugal, moving hook, line and sinker to the country. It's issued for retirement purposes, even for religious purposes, or for individuals who are self-supporting. How do you prove that you're self-supporting? Actually, it's fairly easy. You need to show that you've got about 15 to 20,000 in a Portuguese bank account and a regular income, a monthly income. The supporting documents are a lease agreement. Again, there's not a requirement to buy a property, a Portuguese bank account, the famous NIF, the proof of means of support, the criminal record certificate, and valid travel insurance. Now, the difference with the process with the D7 is it starts here through the agency VFS, and effectively after the first appointment and the approval for the temporary visa for 4 months, then the process is continued in Portugal through the immigration authorities, CEF, and the visas themselves are issued, both in the case of the D7 and the Golden Visa, are issued for periods of 2 years. After 5 years, application can be made for Portuguese nationality. Difference with the Golden Visa is the process starts in Portugal at the moment of making the qualifying investment. So purchasing a property. Yes, I will cover this very briefly. 3 stages: due diligence, signature of a promissory contract of purchase and sale, and signature of a final deed contract of purchase and sale. What I'll highlight here is maybe some of the differences between the various systems in the UK. Obviously, the documents which are used for the purposes of undertaking the due diligence are significantly different. There are no original deeds in the sense that you would have here. Actually, the original deeds are generally kept at the land registry and the tax department and at the local council. But it is important for the basis of undertaking our due diligence and our pre-contractual inquiries that we are given access to each of these documents listed. So where the property has been built prior to 1951, there is no requirement for a license. However, now increasingly we have to obtain a certificate from the local authorities stating that the property is exempt. Now, and what can happen is in order to secure a property prior to the signature of the contract, a reservation agreement is signed with a fairly nominal sum in order to secure the property, for example, for 15 to 20 days. Signature of the promissory contract, important to highlight, is that again, these contracts tend to be, there's not really the same concept of standard terms and conditions. However, these contracts, where they used to maybe run into 3 pages, are now a little bit more lengthy, in the sense that guarantees and warranties, more extensive guarantees and warranties are being placed in the contract. Important point to remember is that the deposit is not paid as stakeholder. So the deposit is paid unconditionally to a seller, unless, of course, there is an escrow arrangement which is reached with the seller or the developer, as the case may be. Signature of the final deed or the contract of purchase and sale. In this case, again, it differs. It's not the matter of making a phone call. Have we completed? Yes, we've completed. Have you funds? Yes, we funds. It's a little bit more complex. It's in the sense that attendance needs to be made at a final deed before a public notary or a legal executive. But again, we can attend on behalf of the client with the respective power of attorney. Taxes, of course, there are always taxes to pay, aren't they? So there is the IMT tax to pay, which has got a top rate now of 7.5% for properties above 1 million. But generally speaking, it then has a cascade scale, which comes up to properties around the 500,000, 600,000 level. And this is paid at, or slightly before, the final deed of purchase and sale. There is stamp duty and registration to pay. Stamp duty is 0.8% on the transaction. If there's a mortgage, there will be an additional 0.6%. And then an IMI, additional property tax, which is actually pretty reasonable, generally around something around 0.4% of the tax value of the property, bearing in mind that the tax value of the property is generally a lot lower than the market value. Okay, everyone, thanks so much for your attention. I have covered, as I say, a lot of ground. If you do want to speak to me or Gonzalo, we're over there. Thanks a lot, and look forward to hearing from you later.